Hello everybody, welcome to the Shirley Wiseman YouTube channel, and today we are going to be making zucchini bread with Aunt Sissy. Shirley Wiseman, also known as Aunt Sissy. I have Richard videotaping for me, and I already have some in the oven. Want to show you how to make zucchini bread in bulk. So if you have a garden and you grow zucchini, or you have a friend that grows them, they usually grow pretty big. You buy them in the store, they're not going to be this big. They're very watery, the seeds are very big, they're not the best to eat when they're this large. So what I do then, I had about 5 of these. 2 were this big, and there's another one this size, another one smaller. Approximately for a big one, you can get about 4 cups of shredded zucchini. So what I do is I cut it into chunks that I feed through my KitchenAid food processor here. So I have a food processor that has a shredder on it. Okay, you can either get a hand shredder, but that's a lot of work. I recommend getting some equipment that's got some electric power there, or you're going to be doing a lot of shredding. So I just run it through that, and then it comes out like this. So really nice, really pretty shredded, okay? You can also, if you have a lot, shred it ahead of time and then freeze it in gallon bags, in freezer bags. But when you get it out of the freezer, you're going to want to let it drain the juice out, because they do have a lot of water in it. So when they thaw out after freezing, you're going to have a lot of liquid. You don't want your recipes too liquidy. Okay, so for zucchini bread, I have 2 kinds. Okay, I've already put the regular zucchini bread in the oven, and now I'm doing a chocolate zucchini bread, which I haven't really done before. So I'm just gonna show you how to make zucchini bread in bulk. So I had a big 8-cup container like this, full of zucchini. So I have that much, and now I have this much, which is 4 cups. So a recipe calls for 2 cups of shredded zucchini. So I have 4 cups here, so that's going to make a double recipe. When I had 8 cups, then it made a quadruple recipe. Okay, so you're going to have to do a little bit of math here. But so for one ingredient, so what I did first was I shredded my zucchini so I know how many recipes I'm going to make. So the first thing that you're going to do after you shred your zucchini, and you know what you're doing, you take your dry ingredients. So we're going to start with flour. So it's 3 cups of flour, and I've already put my ingredients here in the bowl. Okay, and I'll have a big bowl because I'd like to double, quadruple recipes. So we have 3 cups of flour, and I like to use unbleached flour. Use a good grade flour. And then it's going to be 2 1/4 cups of sugar. Now this is per recipe. So when I have here 2 cups of zucchini, so I put in 2 times 3. So I put in 6 cups of flour in here, and then this is 2 1/4 times 2, so that's going to be 4 1/2 cups of sugar. Okay, then I had, this is baking soda in here. So I had put in 1 teaspoon is the recipe, so I put in 2 teaspoons of the baking soda. I put in baking powder is 1 teaspoon, so I put in 2 teaspoons of that. It called for salt. I always half my salt recipe, salt ingredient. So if it calls for 1 teaspoon, I put in 1/2 teaspoon. So it called for 1, so I put in 1 because I'm doubling my recipe and I use half. Okay, and use a regular, when you have measuring spoons, use a regular measuring spoon. And then for liquid ingredients, I use this kind of measuring cup. And for dry ingredients, I use this kind of measuring cup. These are my standards. I have others, but I like these that I stick with. Okay, it also called for a tablespoon of ground cinnamon. Okay, so a tablespoon. That's not the kind that you eat with, but this is the true measurement. So I put in 2 tablespoons of cinnamon. Called for 1 teaspoon of nutmeg, so I put in 2 teaspoons because again I'm doubling the recipe. Now I already did quadruple 1, so keep in mind if you're quadrupling, you just multiply the amount times that. So again, we'll start with, so for 2 cups of zucchini, you have 3 cups of flour, 2 1/4 cups of sugar, a teaspoon of baking soda, and I have mine in a big thing that I fill up, that's why it looks like that. A teaspoon of baking powder, a teaspoon or 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of nutmeg, 1 tablespoon of cinnamon. Okay, it also calls for 3 teaspoons of vanilla, and I use pure vanilla extract. I don't like the imitation, but you can use whatever you like. So 3 teaspoons of that, so I put 6 because I'm doubling. Also, it calls for nuts. I had some nuts and I put them in the other recipe. So this recipe, I'm going to use coconut. The other recipe calls for 1 cup of chopped nuts. So I put 2 cups in my other recipe and 2 cups of coconut. So in other words, for each recipe you want 1 cup of add-ins. You could use chocolate chips, you can use raisins. Zucchini is kind of a flavorless kind of food, so you can put craisins in it. So whatever flavor you want, you can do that, and you can change up your spices if you don't want it as spicy. So in the other one, I had 2 cups of pecans. I had pecans that I chopped up. You can use any kind of nut, and I put 2 cups of coconut. Now this one I'm making a chocolate one, so I put, and I've never done this before, so I put 1 cup of cocoa powder. So in other words, for each recipe, half a cup. So and since I'm doubling, I did 1 cup of cocoa powder. Also, it calls for 3 eggs. So I already have them in the bowl that I've beaten up, but you can see I've got oil that I added on here. So 3 cups of 3 eggs, and I use the large eggs. Okay, that's the best kind to use for cooking, for baking, the size of it. So I beat those. So I actually have 6 eggs in here because I'm doubling it. And then oil calls for 1 cup of oil. I just buy mine, just any kind of. I use vegetable oil. I used to use canola oil. I don't eat this stuff anyway, but just pure vegetable oil is what I like to use. So 1 cup of that, so that is 2 cups of this. And sorry, when I said I don't eat it, it's because I have dietary restrictions, so that's why I don't eat. I use coconut oil or olive oil, but not for cooking. So I'm making these for other people as gifts. So 1 cup of oil, so that will be 2 cups in here. So that is all of the ingredients. So what I've done is I've already mixed my dry ingredients. So I have my flour and my sugar, the spices, and I have well, you can smell them too, the nutmeg is pretty strong, and the cocoa powder. So now I have the oil and the egg, and also I put the vanilla extract. So I'm just going to, the best that, if you don't, when you're cooking in bulk, you can't really do it in a mixer. So I do it all by hand. Now, so you just make a well kind of in the middle of the ingredients. Okay. And actually, it's good just kind of mix them up there. But this is the chocolate's giving it that dark color, and so the spices. Okay, so then I'm going to dump in that well, I'm going to dump my eggs that are already beaten up and my oil. Sorry, put that backwards so you can see. Okay, so I dump those in there. Now in my other recipe, so then we're going to fold this together. You don't want to just stir it fast, it'll all spill out on you. Now I had double this much in the other one, so it was really full. So you just fold it. By folding it, because we're doing this in bulk, so it's going to be difficult to get all the ingredients. So you want to keep just folding, going around the middle, and going around the outside and into the middle to mix your dry ingredients with your wet ingredients. Once this gets blended together, it's going to be a nice dark chocolatey color. You could also add some chocolate chips in here. That would be nice. You don't have to put nuts. It does help dry it up a little bit, but I'm going to put coconut in here is what I'm going to do because I like coconut and chocolate. And again, it's zucchini bread, but it's going to taste like chocolate coconut bread because the zucchini really just kind of takes on whatever flavors you're cooking with. Okay, so I have those pretty much added together there. So now I'm going to add the zucchini, and again, it's 1 cup per recipe, so this is a double, and I've got 2, and this is very liquidy. You're going to see the ingredients are kind of dry right now, but when I add that in, it's going to add in a lot of moisture. Now in my first, I use different kinds of baking pans, so while I'm stirring this up, and this just get you a workout here, while I'm stirring that up, I'll explain. So in the other recipe, I did 4, and it was a little bit more moist. This one does have the cocoa powder in it, so it's going to make it more moist. So it's going to be a little bit, not more moist, a little bit drier, harder to stir up. But as the zucchini, which holds moisture, as I stir it in there, it starts breaking it down to make it a little bit easier to stir. But in my first one, so these are my little mini pans that I have over here. And I had also some regular size loaf pans. So my other one, I had 6 regular loaf pans that you fill up to about between a half to 2/3 full. You don't want to make it too full because it will tend to kind of burn on the edges and it won't be done in the middle. So you don't want to make them too full, and they might cook over into your oven as well. I like to use these little pans. It cooks really well. I have 2 sizes. I have this size and I have this size. These are kind of non-stick, so I did grease all my pans and floured them except for these And I don't know how many pans I'm going to need, but this is also a big muffin tin. So I also greased those, and I use shortening. Sometimes I use lard to grease my pans, but I'm giving these to my daughter-in-law. I'm going to take some with me to visit her, and she's a vegetarian, so I don't want to use lard because it's based on a meat fat. Okay, so once you get it all stirred up, we're getting close. Now, you can see it's all mixing in there. Then you want to add your add-ins, but you see it takes a while to keep stirring. The other loaf pans I have in the oven, and after they come out, then I'm going to put these, and I like to put them towards the center of the oven, but since I had so many, I also put some on the top shelf. So about halfway through cooking, and you do put the oven at 325, and it's about an hour. So you want to look at it, and you want to put a toothpick down in the middle to make sure it's done. So I'm going to add, since I don't have nuts in this one, I'm going to put some coconut in it. And since I'm doubling the recipe, I'll put 2 cups. I'll have to cut a little bit more open. I'm getting a workout. You just keep stirring and stirring and stirring until it's all blended in, and then you pour it in your pans, and then you bake it, and then you take it out. What we're going to do is show you, once I get them out of the oven, all of them, then we'll show you how it looks, the finished product. But this is, a lot of times I put chocolate chips, but I was out of chocolate chips. So the nice thing about this bulk baking, you can kind of, because you're multiplying the recipe, you can put 1 cup of nuts. You could put, if you're quadrupling, you could put 4 different things in it. You could put 1 cup of nuts, 1 cup of coconut, and I do use the organic coconut that's unsweetened. Okay, that's what I use. There's no need to add the shredded sweetened stuff you get in the grocery store. It's just more extra, it's extra sugar that you don't need. So this is starting to smell really good, chocolatey, coconutty. If you don't like coconut, you can just put, if you were doubling the recipe, 2 cups of chocolate chips. You can put any kind of nuts. Yeah, like I said, you can put raisins or craisins for Christmas. I like to use the craisins because it looks pretty. And freeze these because there will be a lot of them, and they make really good gifts. Okay, this one is definitely harder to stir than the last one, but see how it's down at the bottom, there's still flour, so you just keep working it, kind of like kneading dough, but you just keep working it until it gets all blended in. And then, you probably don't want to watch me keep doing this, so almost done, but then you're going to put it in the pans. And I don't know how many pans I'm going to need. I go ahead usually and get my pans prepared because I don't want to be in the middle of pouring them and then I'm like, oh, I'm short a pan, and then have to go and grease it. In my bigger pans, I put a little bit of wax paper at the bottom, so I cut just at the bottom, and then I grease it. I put a piece of wax paper at the bottom, I grease that, and then I flour it, because the bigger loaves, they will tend to stick in it. That will make it come out without sticking. The smaller pans, you don't need to put wax paper. I just grease and flour it, except the really small ones, which are kind of non-stick. Okay, so then that's pretty much what it's going to look like after it's all blended up. Okay, and then you're just going to put some in the pans. We'll just show you a little bit here, and then we'll come back with you after I'm done. But you want to, okay, and you might make a mess everywhere. But I'll show you about that much in the pan. And a little bit more here. We'll get it. And just kind of smooth it around. So it's about 2/3 of the pan. So then I'll just keep putting this in all the pans, and then I'll get it ready to bake. And when the other ones come out, we'll take them out and put these in, and then we'll come back with you and show you what everything looks like and do a taste test. All right, thank you for joining Aunt Sissy and making zucchini bread.